Hey, this is Jimmy. This past week has been a difficult time for me and my family. My grandfather recently fell ill and went to the hospital where he had suffered as a result of suffering a blood clot. And unfortunately, things are looking pretty grim. And the hospital is sending him home to be cared for by hospice. And many of you probably are very familiar with what hospice is. It's kind of end-of-life service where they come in and provide care until time that you should pass. And this got me to thinking and feeling a lot of new feelings. And I remarked to my wife recently that I felt angry. I didn't know why I felt angry at the time, and I couldn't fully explain it, but I felt anger over the thought of my grandfather dying. The more I got to thinking about it, the more I thought about John chapter 11, where Jesus, when faced with the death of Lazarus, went to his graveside, and we read the famous Bible verse that Jesus wept at the graveside of Lazarus. We usually think of that verse in very sentimental feelings, very sort of sappy, sad sort of stuff. And we think, oh, how Jesus wept. And that's what they thought at the graveside. But if you read the more scholarly literature on the Gospel of John in John chapter 11, you'll realize that when Jesus wept, it wasn't just Jesus feeling some sort of sentimental feeling. It was more, when Jesus wept, it was more of a battle cry. It was more of a William Wallace crying freedom, and pummeling the English, and just letting all his deep emotions rise up in him as he went and faced death, and as he went to go care for his friend Lazarus. Jesus felt, I think, some of that anger that I've felt. You see, when you look and study the scriptures, you'll understand that death, even though we say it's a natural thing, really death isn't a natural thing. Death is the result of the fall. Death is the result of the sin of Adam and Eve and the curse that came on this world. And death is something that, while it may seem very natural to us in the sense that everybody that is born will die, death in the Gospels is looked at by Jesus as an enemy to be conquered. And when he went to the side of Lazarus to heal him and to raise him up from the dead, when he cried at the graveside of Lazarus, it was a war cry, it was a battle cry, it was a declaration, it was an anthem. It was that Jesus was realizing the purpose for which he was sent in this world, and that was to ultimately extinguish that which death had unleashed in this world as a result of sin. And that's when he gives us his great speech about him being the resurrection and the life. And then shortly thereafter, in just a matter of days, Jesus himself would face death head on, crying out and his battle cry, his war cry as he went to the cross and faced death for you and me. In the midst of the sufferings of my family and the demise of my grandfather, I feel a taste of that anger that Jesus felt, because I realize that death isn't natural, death isn't part of God's plan. God created this world so that it could be full of life and blessing and for us to flourish. And death is counter to the purposes of God. Death is the very opposite of what God wants for this world. And ultimately, Jesus came not just to give us some sort of moral platitudes of how to live your life between now and death, so that you can go to heaven one day, but rather Jesus came so that not only might he teach us how to have life, but so that we might also challenge death head on through the resurrection of his body from the grave, and the ultimate reconciliation of all things through the gospel, so that our lives, which will too end in death, will not ultimately end there, but because of what Jesus did on the cross and what he did in his resurrection, will allow us to escape death through our own resurrection, and through the creation of Jesus making all things new. So anyways, Jimmy, just thought I'd share this kind of personal devotional, this struggle that my family and I were going through, and I ask that you keep us in our prayers. We haven't lost total hope with my grandfather yet, But I just wanted to kind of share this. I feel angry, and I should feel angry. You should feel angry at the thought of death, and not just accepting it as a normal part of living, but as something that we ultimately have to face head on, and that we need to look at truly as an enemy. And we'll only look at it as an enemy if we truly understand death in light of the gospel, of the life that Jesus came to bring to us and to this world. So anyway, have a good day, everybody. Take care. Be safe, and hope to talk to you again soon. Bye.